You are all by yourself in the dimly lit house, and the only sound that can be made out is the background hum of the television. Your body reacts to the sudden loud slamming of a door, which causes you to start breathing more quickly and causes your heart rate to accelerate. You suddenly recall that you had left a window open, and you understand that the wind was the only thing that caused the door to crash. In the split second it took for you to regain your composure, your body went through the same kinds of responses that a person would go through if they came across a dangerous animal in the wild. Your entire biological system shifted into fight or flight mode the moment you were threatened. However, why do we experience fear? It is actually a chain reaction that begins in our brain with a stimulus, such as the sound of a door slamming, and then leads to our heart rate raising, our breathing becoming more fast, and all of our muscles tightening up. For some people, the thing that brings on feelings of anxiety and dread may be spiders, while for others it might be the prospect of giving a speech in front of a huge group of people, or in this particular instance, it might be a door that slams shut extremely rapidly. To have a better grasp on this response, it is necessary to first discuss the human brain, which is made up of billions of nerve cells that are constantly in conversation with one another. This communication network is responsible for all of our ideas, feelings, and behaviors. Yet, some of our activities take place unconsciously while others are within our conscious control. Fear is one of the unconscious emotions, and there are occasions when we can't even realize consciously the scope of what's going on during this emotional outburst. During an emotional outburst, multiple areas of the brain are involved in this complicated system. It is not just one particular area of the brain that is responsible for these physiological changes. Although we cannot point the finger at a particular place as the culprit, there are a few regions that are more influential than others. The thalamus is responsible for determining the destination of sensory information that has been gathered by the senses such as sight, hearing, taste, touch, and smell. This information is subsequently interpreted by the sensory cortex, and the hippocampus is responsible for storing memories that have been consciously acquired as well as processing incoming inputs to build connections. The amygdala is responsible for analyzing feelings, identifying prospective threats, and retaining memories of past experiences of fear. The hypothalamus is the last part of the brain to activate the fight or flight response. There are two routes that may be taken for this chain reaction to take place: the fast route and the slow route. Because the reasoning in this situation never allows anything to be left to chance, the shortcut may be somewhat troublesome, but it is definitely the safest option. For instance, if you suddenly hear a door banging, it may just be the wind, but if it's a thief, the scenario becomes quite dangerous for you. Therefore, it is prudent to avoid leaving matters up to chance and to exercise caution. The following is an explanation of how the physiological process works. The hammering on the door is a stimulus. This sensory stimulation is received by the thalamus in the brain, but the thalamus is unable to discern whether or not it represents a threat signal. It then relays the information to the amygdala as a safety measure, and the amygdala, upon receiving the nerve signal, promptly activates the fight or flight mechanism via the hypothalamus. This system has the potential to save your life, but getting there involves going through a procedure in which every conceivable outcome is considered. The thalamus is the part of the brain that takes in the information about the door pounding and then transfers it to the sensory cortex so that it may be interpreted. The sensory cortex may interpret this information in a number of different ways, and it delivers the information to the hippocampus so that it can be evaluated. The hippocampus analyzes new information by analyzing previous information and comparing it to other experiences. For instance, it will reveal if the noise was caused by a thief or the wind. Other data can be incorporated into the process as well, such as the sound of the wind heard via an open window. The hippocampus draws the conclusion that it was simply the wind based on this knowledge, and it communicates this to the amygdala and the hypothalamus, letting them know that there is no need to fight or escape. At the very end, it communicates its directives to the part of the body that we refer to as the sympathetic system as well as the adrenal glands. After receiving the instructions, the glands begin to produce adrenaline and noradrenaline, which are both hormones. The hormones in question are referred to as stress hormones. Because of these hormones, you will experience a rise in both your blood pressure and your heart rate. In addition to its role as the conductor of our bodies, the hypothalamus also stimulates the pituitary gland, which is located in the subcortical region of the brain. This gland is in constant communication with the adrenal glands and is responsible for the release of around 30 different hormones, including those that regulate your response to stress, in order to keep you prepared for any potential threat. When you take this medication, your blood pressure and heart rate will speed up, your pupil size will get smaller, the blood vessels just under your skin will constrict, and the primary muscle groups in your body will have increased strength. This phenomenon is known as shivering. You experience a form of cold due to the decreased amount of blood that is present in the skin. Following this, your blood sugar level rises, and because adrenaline and sugar are involved, your muscles become active. The contraction of the minute muscles that are linked to each individual hair or fur follicle is the reason of your hair standing on end. Last but not least, in this predicament, superfluous processes like elimination and immunity will shut down so that energy may be directed toward more essential systems. This is all that takes place in order to secure our survival, which is one of the most fundamental instincts that all living creatures have in common. The most important question, then, is why it is that we are terrified. There are two possible responses to this question. The primary objective is to keep one's life. Fear keeps us alive. Fear is what has allowed the human race to continue existing for as long as it has. If this hadn't happened, our species would no longer exist. Imagine for a moment if we would not think twice before engaging in any type of brawl, whether it be jumping off of roofs, mindlessly wandering in the center of traffic, or fighting anyone. In these trying times, for instance, when there is a pandemic going on, even if we have nothing to do, we wouldn't be mindlessly walking around, would we? We would devolve into a powerless collective. Okay, so if we look at the history of mankind, we can see that some phobias have been handed down from one generation to the next. Either via direct instruction or through the coding of their DNA, humans have instilled in their offspring the required anxieties for continued existence. In point of fact, humans lived in considerably more dread back in the Stone Age. Now that we have some time, let's discuss why it is that we still have such an ancient sensation. It's possible that there are still an infinite number of things to be terrified of, and there are many more things that may lead to our demise or damage. Although the triggers may have shifted, the sensation of clinging to life is still very much there. Even while certain threats may not have a direct influence on our lives, we are nonetheless made aware of the plights of countless others all over the world as a result of what we see or hear on television or the internet. Our thoughts are subconsciously changed as a result of this. When we went hunting in the past, the only thing we had to worry about was being attacked by a lion, but these days, people need to be afraid of God as well. Every outlet is actively promoting an atmosphere of terror. There is, of course, also the non-genetic side of dread, and conditioning is one of the most prevalent types of fear. In this context, we might talk about the Little Albert experiment, which was led by the American psychologist John Watson and considered to be one of the most eye-opening studies ever undertaken. A little boy named Albert was conditioned in the manner of Ivan Pavlov using this technique so that he would be afraid of white rats. Because there were no ethical norms available at the time, the unfortunate youngster was put in the same room as a few rats in the laboratory. In the beginning, Albert would play with animals, even though he had no real cause to be afraid of mice. He enjoyed them, but at one point, John Watson began making a terrifying noise whenever Albert got close to a mouse. This continued for a while. Soon enough, Albert developed a healthy dread of mice, and when he did eventually encounter one, he would immediately begin loudly sobbing and refuse to touch it. Not only mice, but the sight of any fuzzy animal made him extremely uncomfortable. The issue that needs to be answered, which is exactly the one that needs to be asked, is why certain individuals have such a severe reaction when it comes to fear. Some individuals can't tolerate watching horror movies, while others like undertaking extreme activities or traveling to amusement parks just as much as they enjoy watching scary movies. Some people find it intolerable, while others enjoy the experience very much. The explanation for this is straightforward. All of the physiological responses that occur in our bodies during fear are quite similar to those that occur during sexual desire. Similar exchanges take place in our body when we think about it. Because of this, the entertainment business, particularly the film industry, extreme sports, and amusement parks all play on our most fundamental feelings. In addition, persistent worries, often known as phobias, can have a negative impact on a person's life and may even necessitate the need for psychiatric treatment. Fear, in its most basic form, is one of the essential emotions that has kept humans alive throughout history, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with being afraid. However, if the dread is related with failure and inadequacy, then, as Robin Sharma puts it, fear is nothing more than a state of mind. Although it is natural for humans to experience fear in order to protect themselves and others they care about. I'll talk to you in the future video. Take care.